Hey, did you check the first part? Don't worry, the link to the first part is in the description.
Lee Dongo, often called Toad, wonders if he did something really bad in a past life to be cursed with such an ugly face and short height in this one. Along with his looks, he is very quiet and shy. Because of this, like Jungo, he has faced endless bullying for all 18 years of his life. Unable to take it anymore, he decides to end everything by jumping off the school building. He stands at the edge, praying to God to make him good-looking and amazing in his next life. Just as he is about to jump, he hears a noise behind him. Curious, he turns around and sees Jungo and Kungyun fighting. Jungo notices him and looks scared, unsure if Dongo has found out about his powers. Realizing he has no choice but to silence Dongo, Jungo steps toward him. To his shock, Dongo grabs both of his hands and thanks him for saving him. Overjoyed, Dongo jumps excitedly and calls Jungo his savior. Jungo stands there confused, wondering if he really is a savior. The scene shifts to a neighborhood where a huge monster is roaming the streets. A teenage boy with a strange mark on his palm appears. With just one squeeze, he crushes the monster's life, cursing it forever. The boy, Sian, then sits on the ground, clenching his fist as the pain from the mark in his hand worsens. As he stays lost in thought, a friend approaches, warning him to be careful with his powers. His friend also feels annoyed seeing Sian in a school uniform despite never going to school. As they walk, Sian's friend tells him to quit his dangerous job, upset about his fate, as Sian faces deadly risks every day. But Sian just accepts it as God's punishment and changes the topic, asking his friend about school. His friend excitedly says school starts tomorrow. Annoyed again, Sian tells him to avoid bananas at school, further irritating him. Meanwhile, Jungo sits in class, deep in thought, troubled that Dongo now sees him as a hero for the week. His eyes move to the hallway, where Dongo, as always, is being bullied by his classmates. To them, he is nothing but a joke, someone they push around for fun like a fraud. Anger rises inside Jungo as he watches, silently saying sorry to Dongo because he knows he can't help. Just then, Yuni, one of his classmates, asks if he'll join the school trip, as everyone else has already signed up. Feeling nervous, he blushes and says he'll decide by tomorrow. Watching her return to her friends, he thinks about how she is the only one in class who seems to care about him. On top of that, she is pretty, smart, and kind, making her one of the most liked girls in school. Knowing he is an outcast, he feels sure that a girl like her would never notice someone like him. After school, he walks home, wondering if he will ever have a normal life like others. As he walks, he realizes his powers have limits when the pain in his hand becomes unbearable. He looks up after hearing his name. It's Gawa calling him. He remembers how he had ignored him earlier. Fear creeps in as Gawa asks him to come over, and he wonders if he should go or run away. Gathering all his courage, he decides to face him, ready to show that he is not weak. Gawa watches as Jungo walks toward him with confidence, not looking weak. To annoy him, he asks if Jungo finally understands that he is just a loser. As Jungo gets closer, Gawa starts to feel uneasy about Kyunggun's absence. Kyunggun had promised to handle Jungo during lunch, but he hasn't shown up since then. Gawa knows Kyunggun wouldn't just disappear without informing him. On top of that, he is shocked to see Jungo looking fine, without a single bruise. But Jungo pays him no attention, too focused on getting revenge. He feels sure about pulling the knife from his bag when he is close enough. But before he can act, Gawa notices Jungo ignoring him and questions him about it. As Jungo stares at him, watching him smoke, fear grips him. Before he can react, Gawa kicks him in the stomach, making him tremble. Surprisingly, Jungo stays on his feet, even though it feels like his stomach is about to explode. Ignoring Gawa again, he glances at his bag where his knife is kept. Seeing this, Gawa rushes at Jungo, aiming to punch him. Jungo has no time to dodge, and Gawa's fist lands hard on his stomach. Jungo collapses, coughing and gasping for air. Without mercy, Gawa grabs him by the hair and demands to know where Kyunggun is. But Jungo is too exhausted to answer, so Gawa punches him again in the face. Lying on the ground, Jungo realizes he must use his powers to defeat Gawa. With determination, he reaches into his bag and pulls out a knife, even as Gawa presses his face into the ground with his foot. Gawa is shocked when he sees Jungo take out the knife, only to stab himself in the arm. Both of them freeze in surprise. Jungo's mind races, unable to understand why he is the one bleeding instead of Gawa, even though he has powers from Mephistophiles. Jungo screams in pain as Gawa crushes his cigarette on his cheek. Even as Jungo begs him to stop, Gawa continues to beat him. Gawa's friend watches in silence, feeling relieved that he is on Gawa's side and not his enemy. As Gawa keeps hitting Jungo, a voice suddenly calls out, ordering him to stop. He turns toward the voice and sees Lee Sian standing nearby with his friend. Gawa stands up and asks why Sian is here. When Sian says his name, Gawa warns him not to say it if he wants to stay alive. Sian's friend is unsure about Gawa's behavior, but Sian seems to know a little about him. As Gawa and his friend move toward them, Sian and his friend challenge them, telling them to pick on someone their own size instead of weaker people. Gawa's friend, Jang Sukmu, a judo expert, mocks Sian's friend by calling him a chimp. Sian warns his friend to stay calm, noticing him losing control after being called that. But Sukmu doesn't stop and keeps making fun of him for hiding behind Sian. His words only make Sian's friend angrier, and he warns Sukmu to stop. However, Sukmu keeps teasing him, calling him a chimp again and again. Unable to control himself any longer, Sian's friend snaps and charges at Sukmu, snapping back that Sukmu's mother must be a monkey too. Before Sukmu can react, Sian's friend punches him hard in the chin, demanding he take back his words. As Sukmu stumbles, struggling to recover, Sian's friend taunts him, asking if he is really down after just one hit. He challenges him to get up, saying he is only getting started. Grabbing his neck, Sukmu wonders if the little chimp is really that strong or if he just caught him off guard. As Sian's friend keeps mocking him for being scared and dares him to fight properly, Gawa ignores them and stares at Sian, his eyes burning with anger. Sukmu stands up and cracks his knuckles, challenging Sian's friend to fight. Just as he steps forward, Gawa stops him. Sukmu glares at him, his frustration clear, and asks angrily if Gawa really expects him to back down after being insulted. A chill runs down Sukmu's spine as Gawa firmly tells him to stop again. Sukmu tries to calm him, telling him to relax, but Gawa orders him to follow. As they start to leave, Sian's friend calls them cowards for running away so fast. But Gawa keeps walking, warning Sukmu to stay quiet. He even threatens that the next time they meet, he will end their lives. But Sian's friend dismisses them, not caring at all, unlike Gawa, who seems unsure about Sian's sudden appearance. After Gawa leaves, Sian and his friend focus on helping Jungo. Once they stop the bleeding, Jungo wakes up, looking confused. When he sees Sian and his friend checking on him, fear takes over, as he doesn't seem to recognize them. He quickly gets up, thanking them, sensing that Sian is upset with him even after saving his life. As Jungo stands, Sian notices something strange and asks what's wrong. Before he can learn the truth about Jungo's powers, Jungo suddenly dashes away in a panic. Watching him flee, Sian's friend gets annoyed, expecting a different reaction after helping him. Meanwhile, Mephistophiles watches from a rooftop nearby, casually eating chips as his interest in Jungo's situation grows. Jungo rushes into the same room where he first met Mephistophiles, calling out his name with certainty, convinced he is there. As expected, Mephistophiles appears on the rooftop, asking why Jungo is shouting. Jungo sees him and demands to know why his powers failed against Gawa. Even after cutting his wrist, Gawa was unharmed. Mephistophiles chuckles and casually says he has no idea why. Jungo gets annoyed and tells him to stop joking around. But suddenly, Jungo laughs, mocking Mephistophiles for not being as powerful as he claims. He adds that dealing with a demon like him should be easy. Jungo laughs again, repeating how weak Mephistophiles seems. However, Mephistophiles gets offended, reaches out, and chokes Jungo, lifting him off the ground. As Jungo struggles, Mephisto coldly tells him that he is nothing more than a toy for him. He lets go, and Jungo falls to the ground, coughing. Mephistophiles then reveals that Jungo's powers only work under one condition: hatred. He asks Jungo what he felt while fighting Gawa. As Jungo tries to recall, Mephisto points out that along with hatred, he also felt fear. Jungo clenches his fists, frustrated by this truth. Mephisto, still eating chips, adds that Jungo knows he is pathetic. Even with so much power, he's still shook with fear. Jungo angrily tells Mephisto to shut up, insisting that he knows nothing about his painful past. Admitting his own weakness, Jungo sits down and confesses that despite his power, he is always afraid. Mephistopheles asks if Jungo wants to be the last one standing or if he is fine with being a loser. With a final glance, Mephisto walks away, saying he is pretty sure Jungo will stay a loser. As he leaves, Jungo's frustration deepens, making him feel like both a coward and a failure. On the other hand, Sukmu fumes as Gawa made him retreat from Sian and his friend. He complains, sure that he could have beaten them. Gawa, irritated, lifts Sukmu by the throat, reminding him of his place. He intimidates Sukmu further, asking if he wants to be punished like before. Sukmu quickly apologizes, remembering Gawa's strength, which feels like solid steel. When Gawa lets go, Sukma drops to the floor coughing. Gawa warns him never to question his orders again. Sukmu agrees, already thinking about getting back at Sian's chimp friend if they meet again. Both flinch at the sound of Sukma's phone ringing. As Sukmu answers, his expression changes to shock as he questions the caller. Gawa, now serious, watches him closely as Sukmu demands details about the situation. Reaching the school rooftop, Sukmu pressures his friend for answers. But his friend looks confused, unsure why Kyunggun is lying unconscious on the floor. Sukma glances at Kyunggun, and his friend nervously asks what they should do. Gawa, calmly smoking, orders them to pick up the body. As they do, Gawa flicks his cigarette at Kyunggun, now thinking of him as a failure, the burning tip landing in the puddle of Kyunggun's urine. The news spreads fast after Kyunggun fails to show up at school the next day, with rumors saying he has fallen into a coma for unknown reasons. Whispers fill the halls, with some students guessing that a rival gang attacked Gawa's group to take control of the school. Meanwhile, a few boys talk about using this as a chance to take Gawa's spot as the top gang in school. Gawa soon storms into the room, eyes blazing with anger, and starts beating up the students who act like Kyunggun's condition doesn't matter. Meanwhile, Jungo listens to his classmates' gossip about Kyunggun, laughing and mocking him, believing he got what he deserved. The teacher enters, silencing them with a sharp command. After ordering them to be quiet, he announces the arrival of a new student. The girls get excited, asking if the new student is handsome. After replying that the boy looks normal, the teacher calls him in. When the new student walks in, Jungo freezes in shock.